From ABC News Radio, KMET 1490 in Southern California. This is BizNinja Entrepreneur Radio with your host, Tyler Jorgensen.
Welcome out to BizNinja Entrepreneur Radio. I am your host, Tyler Jorgensen, and today we get to speak with a young CEO and founder, which is always exciting, of a really cool brand called Ohza, which makes ready-to-drink cocktails, starting with mimosas, which is pretty neat for people that love their brunches. Ryan Ayotte, welcome out to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So you're young, right? Like 12 years old, 15?
I don't know about that young, but I'm 26.
So 26 is young to be launching a successful cocktail company. Tell us a little bit about why you even decided that you wanted to be an entrepreneur.
Sure. So, I never was looking to start my own business. I thought, maybe at some point I would. Both my parents were self-employed.
Okay.
I ran my own little business as sort of a side hustle in high school and college. So I kind of got a taste of the ups and downs of being an entrepreneur, and kind of always had that spirit in me. So figured at some point maybe I would start my own business, but didn't know it would be this soon.
So how did this, how long ago did you start Ohza?
Sure. So we launched the brand in June of 2019. So we're just approaching a year.
Awesome.
I came up with the idea because some friends of mine were trying to mix some mimosas on a boat. For those of you in Southern California may or may not know Cape Cod off of Massachusetts, but that's where it was. And so they were spilling, and I thought maybe there's a pre-made one out there that they could get for next time, and turned out there wasn't one. And so that kind of got me thinking that, even though I have no beverage background, maybe I could make one myself. And so that was in 2016.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Didn't do anything with it. Was just thinking about it. I was working in finance, but circled back to it in 2018 in the summer when I was seeing all sorts of, there's a seltzer craze, but also all of these ready-to-drink cocktails popping up. And I was surprised that there really wasn't a mimosa, given how popular of a beverage it is.
Right.
But I was more so convinced that while, having a pre-made mimosa is great and fun, there really should be a beverage out there that's in between the healthier hard seltzers that are low cal, no sugar, but really no flavor. And then your hard lemonades and traditional canned cocktails that are flavorful, but super caloric, really sugary, and not all that drinkable. So a mimosa felt like the perfect vessel to do the in-between.
So you're not too healthy. I like
healthy,
that.
But there is some potassium in there, and your vitamin D and whatnot. But it's basically very similar in calorie count to a hard seltzer, but 30% of the can is filled with juice. So you have much more flavor, more of a traditional cocktail taste, but without the calories.
So you finally, you have this idea, and like a lot of people, it kind of incubates for a couple years, and you decide to take it seriously. What was your first step in getting this from idea into a real product?
Yeah. So when I really circled back to the idea in the summer of 2018, I spent a lot of time just researching. So I talked to just reading a lot, but also reaching out to different breweries and wineries and people in the industry that I could just pick their brain about things and figure out, how it works. And so that's sort of one piece on sort of the logistical end. And the second piece is really talking to people and seeing if it's something that they would even like. I thought it was a good idea, but unless other people do, you might not have a business there. And so that combined with more research made me see that there was a market for it. And so spent a few months building a business plan and seeing if it would financially make sense to do it. And then I jumped in on it. So
cool. How'd you get your very first sale?
So
other than family, right?
Yeah. So it's a little interesting with alcohol. So you have to go, we have direct consumer now, but before, and with most alcohol, it's through retail. So you have to find distributors to work with. And so I basically got some samples made of the liquid that we had finished, not in final packaging, but I brought it to a few distributors in Massachusetts.
Yep.
And one of them decided that, well, they all liked it, but one of them decided that they had to have it in their portfolio and that they would love to carry it. And so that was when we first got our sale, which was a bit before we launched, which was in May or April of 2019.
Cool. So you were able to go into that initial round of production knowing that you had some distributorship already set up.
Yeah, basically my plan was get the product ready, packaging, formula, everything, and then bring it to distributors. Once someone agrees to take it on, then we get ready and produce our first batch of it. So we have somewhere to actually sell it.
Yeah. So your brand has a very 80s Orange Julius vibe to it. How did you come up with the name Ohza, and what was going on there?
Sure. So the name, there's no real deep meaning to it or anything, but if you just kind of slur the word mimosa, you get mimosa. And so I took Ohza off the end of that. Just sort of like a fun play on it. It ties back to
that works
somehow, and it's a very short, one quick word to say. So that's where the name came from.
That makes a ton of sense, actually. I've talked to a couple of my friends late on a Sunday afternoon, and I think I've heard that before.
Yeah, bottomless brunch goes too far.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And so you've started launching some new flavors. Where do you see? Is there any concern that when you created a name Ohza Mimosas that you're pigeonholed and you can't have new products and things that aren't mimosas?
Yeah, sure. So Ohza is our name, and so we've got our classic mimosa now, and then we just launched 2 new flavors that are a classic Bellini and then another mimosa flavor, which is a mango mimosa. And so our pitch for Ohza has been that we're the champagne cocktail producer. So most of those would fall under mimosas. And so we've got classic mimosa, mango mimosa. The Bellini is, champagne and peach. Then we'll kind of add some product extensions from there, but all sort of in the same family.
So it's a big enough catalog, a big enough family that you're not worried about that. You've got a lot of room to grow there.
To me, I think there is. We've got a plan for 10 or 12 products in a year or two. So we'll see.
Very cool. Yeah, that's awesome. So you're really new in the process in terms of from the big picture, right? You've taken from idea. How's distribution going? How many states? Give us some fun stats of kind of your growth in this first year.
Sure. So our strategy has been to start with a relatively small footprint and go deep. And so when we launched in Massachusetts, and now we're in most of New England. We're in over 1,000 retailers. Regionally, we're in Whole Foods, and it's selling well, which is great. And then we recently launched with great timing with COVID, our direct to consumer business. So that launched just at the end of March. And so we're really less than 2 months in, but it's been really awesome. We're able to ship to 46 states with fast shipping, and people can get the new flavors and everything. And so we can really reach a much broader audience than our retail footprint, which is great.
Now, direct to consumer has a little bit of a different obstacles, right? You're shipping 1 or 2 cases. You're dealing with different types of customer service than when you're shipping pallet loads to distributors. Yeah. What had to change within your business in order for that to be successful?
Sure. So adding on top of that too, you have all of the legal restrictions with alcohol, which adds them to it. Yeah. So basically what we had to do is, because we were shipping pallets at a time to distributors, and it's one price they pay, and it's easy to do. And now, we're shipping people by a case at a time or so. And so what we do is, one, we had to make sure we had a much better website and system for online ordering. 2 is that we had to outsource the fulfillment to be able to have all the licenses we needed and to keep up with the growth that we were expecting. As much as I would love to fulfill orders myself or hire someone, 1, the legal restrictions wouldn't allow us to do it this fast of a turnaround, and 2 is I'd rather us focus on marketing and growing the brand online. So that was big. And then there's also a lot of customer service involved. So answering lots of emails and trying to answer live chats on the website and things like that. So
absolutely,
it can, with direct consumer, especially when a lot of time people are coming to your website through social media, your service is amplified. So you got to make sure you're really doing the best you can.
Absolutely. Yeah. One mistake can send a ripple quite a far
Yes.
way. Yeah. Well, that makes a ton of sense. So, you're a year into it. What are some big things? What was the biggest challenge that you've had so far in this first year, and how'd you overcome that?
Sure. I mean, we've definitely had our fair share of unexpected delays and issues and things like that. I think one hard thing for us is this balance of inventory management. It's a perishable item, and so if you make too much and it's too long, you got to get rid of it. If you don't have enough and you can't fulfill orders, then you're losing out on revenue.
Yep.
And not to mention that we have everything outsourced, so we don't have our own warehouses or production facilities. So managing all of that can be hard, especially when you're brand new and you don't truly know what the demand is going to be. But luckily, we have come away with a pretty good grasp of sales, and have only run out a couple of times and for relatively short periods of time. So we're learning as we go, but that's probably the biggest obstacle so far.
Just that supply chain management, projections, that sort of thing. What's your advice to somebody who's getting into anything related to manufacturing on how to deal with that as a startup?
Yeah, so I think one really important lesson I learned is that cash is king. So never produce too much inventory. It's better to go out of stock for a little bit than to be sitting on way too much.
Yeah.
You'll find that especially early on when we were just going through retail, you're much more at the mercy of distributors and retailers, and you can't just like crank up your advertising spend on social media and get immediate sales online. And so I think that's a very important thing, is always be cautious with your inventory early on. Because the worst thing you can do is have all your money sitting in a warehouse. So
yeah, absolutely. It doesn't, especially in times like this, you don't want to be inventory rich, right? You gotta be able to move product and have cash. So far, you've done some really smart things. I think it's really smart how you started in a local geographic footprint and really with the idea of going deep before you went wide. What are your goals though now as you reach this first year milestone and you move into that, longer term growth? What are some of your next big steps?
Sure. So the next big steps for us are one, to continue our product portfolio expansion. So additional SKUs for cans. We did sort of, I'd say, soft launch now because of COVID, but we launched mimosa in kegs, which is pretty awesome. So expanding that and sort of our on-premise footprint. And then two is geographic expansion as well. So I think we'll be coming to California area relatively soon. So
very cool.
So really being strategic about where we add retail in the US. So those are
very smart. What has been the most fun part of running a company like this?
Well, one is it's just a fun product. I mean, people, when they're having booze, are having fun. And I think mimosas especially is just a fun daytime event product. And I've been really thrilled. One of my favorite things to do is doing our sampling events and demo events and festivals, and really seeing people's reactions to the product when they try it. Our overwhelming feedback is people love it, which is great. And so it's really invigorating to see that people like it and are trying it, sampling thing, and then they go back and buy it and they follow us on Instagram, and you can see their orders coming in, and it's really cool to see.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think I like how you mentioned that it's a daytime thing, right? It's a different vibe, right? Than some of the other beverages out there that are like night times, like they might play a mystique role. You're just good times with buddies, playing cornhole or throwing die. It's a totally different energy, which is pretty neat.
And it's just such a fun industry generally to be in versus, if you're making medical supplies or whatever it might be, it's a very fun place to be.
Yeah, I'm sure as, a 26-year-old, a lot of your buddies are and you left finance to start a booze company, right? Like a lot of your buddies are probably pretty envious of it.
Yeah.
Did you get any pushback from like family or friends as you decided to take this step?
No, I think they were all very supportive of me right from the beginning. I think, I was strategic with my plan. And I was working on this just nights and weekends up until we were ready to sell the product. I was kind of hedging my bets there, and still taking income from my full-time job.
Smart.
And so going about it that way, I think was great. And it also helps that both my parents were self-employed in the past, and so they kind of got a bit of it. And
that's a big shift. Like if they don't. If you have parents or a support group who has never done that, right? To them, it's crazy and it's a big risk. But not only that, but you actually did it in a low risk style of keeping your day job for the first little while and not just diving in ignorantly about it. Is that a little bit of like your finance background of being very prudent, knowing the numbers? Do you think that led to that?
Yeah, I think it did. And I think, I think part of it is that I was totally fine with working at night and on the weekends for 9 or 10 months on it. And, really wanting to have, the last thing I wanted to do was jump into it, not be able to sell product for 10 months and then not have budgeted my own savings appropriately to do it. And so I knew that I could balance both of those things at the same time. And so it seemed like no reason not to. And then once the product was ready to sell, then I quit and went full time and really gave it my all to make sure that we could do everything we could. So
very smart balance. As someone who's been an entrepreneur pretty much my whole life, a lot of times I see friends want to take that jump into entrepreneurship. And a lot of times they'll do it a little bit too premature. They're like, hey, I quit my job. I'm like, well, cool. Like, what's going on? Like, I don't know. I'm going to figure it out. I'm like, I think maybe you should have like done the way you did, which is really smart. Hey, get some momentum, get some things rolling, figure it out, run the numbers, then make a job. Now, if you just hated your job, do whatever you got to do. But,
that's true.
It's a different, that's life. Now, one thing that you do that is pretty unique, and I get, it's happening more and more, the concept of ethical entrepreneurship or social entrepreneurship is that you guys donate a portion of sales to United Way. Yep. Why? And why'd you choose them?
Sure. So this was actually, I should say, we like to think we're good, but we're not that good. It hasn't been a year-round thing all the time. That was sort of in response to the COVID stuff. And cool. So United Way in Massachusetts has a great fund set up where they help hourly employees and families in need with food and whatever they might need. And so, we're also a small business too that's just trying to struggle through things. And so we thought was the best way to help ourselves, help others, and let our customers feel good is by donating to United Way. From when we started doing it in April till we may just keep it rolling because the feedback seems to be great and we're happy to be giving back. And so we just continue to do it. So we basically been giving $3 for every online order to United Way, which is great. And I
absolutely love how much you've stayed true to this. Like, we're good, but we're not that good, because
we have to make some money too. So,
but I genuinely, I really truly mean it. Too many companies think like they have to be angels, right? Mm-hmm. They have to be perfect, and they have to do we're not here to make money. It's like, it's okay. Like, you can make money. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's cool that along the way you're also helping people, and it's cool. Right. It's okay. Like, hey, you want to not be bad for someone, but it's also okay to not have to be a health drink, right? So I just love that you have this cool equilibrium, this balance. I think it's very healthy.
Yeah, to me, the whole business is about striking the balance of everything. And so the United Way piece has been a great way to give back, help ourselves with our own sales, and have customers feel good about it too. And they can get a buzz on too by donating. So
yeah, I love that. And so that makes sense why you picked them. They're strong locally from where you're at and doing really neat things. What is some of your advice to other people who are just wanting to get started as an entrepreneur, just kind of broader, not necessarily manufacturing or that sort of a thing?
So I think the couple lessons that I learned were, one is you definitely don't need to have it all figured out before you jump into something. It's good to do your research, make sure there's a market for it. But I think once you're convinced that this has to be an idea that I explore, and that if I don't do it, I'll always wonder if I should have, you should just go for it. I'm still learning stuff every day, and I don't have nearly all of it figured out. And but I think that's part of the whole journey is figuring it out as you go. So I think that's an important piece. And then I think the other piece too is that, a lot of people, everyone has different situations, but think that it's very risky to jump into something. But as long as you're doing it in the most cautious way you can. And, the worst that can happen in my mind is that, the company fails, but you gained tremendous amount of experience and you're probably better off for it anyways. So that's the way I've looked at it.
It's always fascinating to me. People will drop $100,000 for a post-grad degree and spend tons of money on things that have very little chance of providing a strong ROI, right? But they don't consider that a risk because they get a diploma at the end, right? There's no risk there. And I'm like, well, but really you're risking 2 years of your time or 4 years if you're talking about college, and you're risking all of that cash in the hopes that it's going to further your career. Like if you're talking about your life and like an idea that you have, to me, the risk of not doing that. And I mean, it took you a couple of years to finally get the ball rolling, but like, could you imagine another 5 years, you were still just thinking, oh, I had this cool idea about canned mimosas. Like that's a risk to me. That like, what if is the risk. And that's probably why I'm an entrepreneur. Right. But
exactly. And my thought has been, worst case, I'm 26. I lost out on probably some better salary that I could have been making in finance, but worst case is I got a lot of experience and I can make up for it, over however many years I got left working. So
yeah, exactly. And so what, you're a finance guy, an entrepreneur, business owner. And you've talked about that, like know your numbers and know what it has to happen in order to make sense is, candidly, a lot of entrepreneurs I know don't have a finance background. And so they really struggle on this piece. Is there kind of some basic finance advice that you can give people? I mean, you guys have raised some cash, right? Like you're not just self-funded. Maybe talk on that a little bit.
Yeah, sure. So I think, at the very basic level, I think what you have to do early on is one, make sure that the product, it doesn't have to be profitable right out of the gates, but know that it can become profitable. And so just figuring out those like initial unit economics of like, I can make it for this, I can sell it for this, and then we can actually make a profit, even if it's not now, but if we can get to a price or get our costs down over the next year, then that makes sense. I think that's very important, is figuring out what your unit economics are. And then I think if you don't have a background in accounting or something like that, either taking some of the basic courses about QuickBooks or finding someone who's a bookkeeper or something that can do it for you and at least set it up early on to make sure you've got things right.
Yeah. And that's part of your early thing of don't do it alone, right? You don't have to figure this all out by yourself.
Yeah, exactly. If that's not your expertise, you bring in people that know how to do it, and you can find, and it doesn't have to be the perfect person or, a CFO has 30 years experience to do it. You find the person that works for right now, and maybe you upgrade that person, as bad as it sounds, in a year or two when you have more money and you want something and your business is larger or whatever. So
yeah, I have a friend whose company grew really, really quickly, and they basically said they had to upgrade, using your words, but had to basically cycle through their executive team 3 times in less than 3 years. And it wasn't that the people weren't good; they were good at the level that they hired them into, but they were growing so fast they had to continue to evolve. Some of those people stayed on and changed roles. Some of them moved on to a better fit. And so, it makes tons of sense. It does not. I love your general concept. Like, it doesn't have to all be perfect, but you got to be moving, right? You got to be making the right steps. So, I mean, really cool company, really like neat branding. You've got, you've got merch on your site. People can check out ohzamimosas.com.
Big discount by using your name, Tyler15, to get 15% off their order.
Awesome. Tyler15. We'll put that out there. We'll also put it in links and all that stuff on the show notes.
Cool.
So I always ask people this: business is about building a lifestyle. The business is fun. Entrepreneurs, sometimes though, they get caught up in just the business goals. What is one of Ryan's personal bucket list goals that you're going to accomplish in the next 12 months?
Sure. That is a tough one. I mean, I've been pretty heads down on this, but I think for me, I would love to really, be able to iron out my schedule to be more structured. Right now it's, and this seems like a minor goal to have over the next 12 months, but right now, I'm working from like 7 a.m. to, it could be midnight or 1 or whatever, and 7 days a week, but really creating that structure of like, okay, I've got to block off an hour to work out. I've got 2 hours to have dinner and relax and watch TV is really important. And I've been trying to improve that each day. But I think that's one goal for me that I think I can achieve over the next 12 months, but we'll see.
Yeah, I'm confident you can if you commit to it. As an entrepreneur who's been around a long time, I see that a lot, right? So there's that cycle of, okay, other things are going to sacrifice while I go all in on the business, but it's a pendulum and it can only swing to one direction for so long. And then what often happens is you swing back and then your attention to the business struggles while you try to get your health back, or you try to get other things back. So just some personal brother to brother encouragement. Just be kind of good, man.
Yeah.
just don't be too bad at that balance, right?
Yeah.
Just get that pendulum swinging the other way. But really enjoy chatting with you. It's been great to get to know your company and you a little bit. Any final words for our listeners out there about your brand or entrepreneurship?
No, I think we covered everything. I mean, check out our website, obviously, if you're interested in some refreshing mimosas. But no, otherwise, in terms of entrepreneurship, just go with your gut and know that you don't have to have it all figured out right away.
I love it. Thank you, Ryan, for coming on the show. My Biz Ninjas and listeners all over the world, it's your turn to go out and do something.
Thank you for listening to BizNinja Entrepreneur Radio with Tyler Jorgensen. Please make sure to subscribe so you're first to hear new interviews and episodes. If you found this podcast to be valuable, please share it with a friend. Don't forget to visit our online dojo at bizninja.com to claim your reward for listening to the show.